Streaming culture relentlessly rewards pushing limits, from subathons to dangerous dares.
Ludwig 7, end of the stream. I can't believe it's finally happening. 8, 7, 24, 13, 1. Okay, never mind.
But in a recent case in France, viewers watched that pursuit of extreme content spiral completely out of control live and come to a fatal end.
This is genuinely insane. A streamer just died while live at the end of a 10-day broadcast that involved him being beaten, bullied, and brutally deprived of sleep.
Pormanove was subject to extreme sleep deprivation, physical and verbal beatings, forced consumption of unknown toxic substances.
46-year-old Jean Pormanove, real name Raphael Gravin, was a top-ranked streamer in France. He started in gaming, but pivoted to wild IRL stunts, quickly building a massive audience. But that's precisely where his content took a devastating dark turn.
Entertainment or ritual online humiliation. French content creator Raphael Gravin was known for his video stunts, like taking on these attack dogs.
Clearly, people enjoyed watching this stuff, but make no mistake, his streams weren't for the faint of heart. And not because of stunts he chose to do. No, their shock factor came from him being part of a collective that made a public spectacle of his humiliation.
Like, this was not just like a one-time thing. This was a recurrent gag on their streams where they bring Jean in and then they all just turn into like the toddlers from Weapons and start like beating him.
They'd also threatened to throw him out on the street when he tried to leave. They apparently beat him, choked him, shot him with a paintball gun, poured paint and oil on him, and just seemingly tortured him in any way they could think of. In one clip that's been making the rounds, they claimed to have locked him in the trunk of the car and drove over speed bumps at high speed.
This wasn't some hidden corner of the internet. French authorities had their eye on it since at least late last year. The group defended it as all just jokes or staged, but those pranks looked uncomfortably real. The way they treated him wasn't entertainment, it was dehumanizing.
But as far as like clips I can show you of just how awful it was, this is, I think, the limit of what I'm allowed to show.
Because if you've never watched the streams like I never did before, watching them is incredibly graphic. I can't show you most of them. I'm gonna have to narrate some of them, show you stills, because like, you just can't play this in public.
The culmination was a 10-day nonstop live stream. Even without abuse, sleep deprivation alone wreaks havoc on the mind and body. Add bullying and constant humiliation on top, and it's a perfect storm for collapse.
They couldn't leave the live stream until they'd finished the game. That means they were filmed morning, noon, and night.
Now, Jean already had known health conditions, but the environment he was trapped in almost certainly accelerated his decline. From the outside, it's obvious. What they're doing was unsustainable, and it's gonna take a real psychological toll. But inside that bubble, the pressure to keep streaming blurred the judgment of everyone involved. Ultimately, his health became secondary. Sacrifice for views.
What happened during this marathon stream where he ultimately passed away was something that he was not a full willing participant of, as evidenced by what he would say during streams, as well as a text message he sent to his mother just days before his death.
And the guy's like, what, do you think I'm gonna kill you or something? And the victim, who ends up dying, says, you never know. A couple days later.
On August 18th, near the end of that stream, Jean died in his sleep. The cause? A heart attack.
In the middle of the night, he started breathing heavily. We were light years away from thinking that there was a problem. We thought he changed position and started snoring, and then it lasted a few minutes. And then he stopped snoring completely and didn't move anymore.
Do you want to know how they went to check if he was still alive? Well, when they thought something might be a bit awry, they threw a bottle at him. They just threw a bottle at his body, and then they went over and started slapping him to try and see if he'd wake up, but he was still unresponsive. So that's when it dawned on them that he had died.
This wasn't just one man's tragedy. It's a glimpse into how social pressure, spectacle, and risky behavior collide with vulnerable human biology.
Where his friends, and I wouldn't call them friends, they are like actual demons, basically just abused him, beat him, fundamentally tortured him, made him consume dangerous things.
In this video, we're going to break down the culture and the medical science behind this tragedy, diagnosing the toxic environment that pushes creators and audiences towards extremes. We'll also examine how JP's pre-existing health conditions were catastrophically exacerbated by the relentless stress of his situation. If you're a returning viewer, do me a solid and give the video a like and share your thoughts about this sad topic. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Watch the video first, and if so inclined, join our army of intelligent interns learning about healthcare at the end. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications so that you can be alerted when I post new content related to your health and the world around you. Let's get to 1 million together and have everyone arrive there a smarter person. Now that we've got that off our plate, let's proceed with the story. First, let's look at the environment of streaming and the psychology at play. It's easy to dismiss this as just one streamer making bad choices, but that misses the bigger picture. Live streaming culture itself is a powerful engine for this behavior. The audience is far from passive. They actively fuel it. There's immense pressure to constantly push limits because the ecosystem is built to reward extremes with maximum attention and donations.
There's not just things that he would do, is that people would actually pay. And the platform encouraged that. Why? Because people are paying.
And in the audience watching them, you had people encouraging them to go even further and even paying for it. In fact, by the end of the 298-hour live stream that ended with JP's death, they'd collected more than 36,000 euros according to the fundraising counter on the screen.
So why are people drawn to this kind of content in the first place? Why do people love the drama? A huge part of this comes down to brain chemistry. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter that drives motivation, spikes when we anticipate something exciting, risky, or taboo. It's the same reward circuit activated by gambling or extreme sports. Pair that with our fight or flight system, the hypothalamus reacting as if the danger is real, and you've got a powerful cocktail of stimulation, all from the safety of your screen. This works because emotionally arousing events are more memorable. In real life, negative arousal teaches us to avoid danger. But when a threat is stimulated, like a horror movie or a viral stunt, the intense surge of fear is followed by relief and even triumph. That combination creates a potent positive reward, making us want to seek that thrill again. For viewers, it's a safe way to experience intensity. All the adrenaline, none of the actual risk. Normally, our mirror neurons would make watching real conflict deeply uncomfortable. But repeated exposure can desensitize us, numbing that empathetic response and creating a demand for ever greater intensity to feel the same thrill. And that's where the audience becomes a key part of the problem. This thrill-seeking crowd often acts as an accelerant, egging on creators from the sidelines with zero accountability. The chat fills with "do it, do it, do it," pushing behavior to more and more extreme levels. So, who's in the chat? And look, this is not a criticism, but a lot of viewers are younger. Their prefrontal cortices aren't fully developed, making them more prone to impulsivity. And many are chronically online, which means you can layer on the constant overstimulation, dopamine-saturated scrolling, endless context switching, and you get a tired, impatient brain constantly chasing the next big hit of gratification. We joke about it, but like 12-year-olds are using a term for it: brain rot. It refers to a state of cognitive overload and is actually linked to anxiety and depression. It dulls emotional responses, overloads working memory, and impairs planning and decision making. Viewers in this state are more likely to make poor judgments, and in a live stream, that means cheering for riskier and riskier behavior. It creates a vicious cycle. Overstimulated audiences demand extremes, which fuels more extreme content. Everyone blames the algorithm, and rightly so. It's designed to promote whatever keeps us engaged, and shock value is a proven driver of virality.
Some experts fear the way algorithms promote certain videos makes influencers push the limits.
It's very sad to say that any content that can be shocking in any way usually creates a buzz. So it's a bit of a snowball effect, with more and more people getting involved, and it can sometimes be the most shocking, the most extreme. It's about standing out.
But we have to remember, the algorithm is ultimately a mirror. It's built to feed us what we, the audience, demonstrably want. The platform itself is engineered to profit from our impulses, no matter how dark the direction they take.
When you have a platform which profits from degeneracy, There is no bottom. I think I jokingly said at one point, like, yo, someone's going to get tortured on camera, we're going to pay for it. The cyberpunk future that I mentioned is like, it's here.
It's not future.
It was happening the whole time. I just didn't know because I don't spend time on degenerate platforms.
So yes, platforms need better policing, but we also have to talk about audience responsibility. What we watch, what we reward, and what we type in the chat matters. It's the other side of the equation that often gets ignored. To be absolutely clear, the greatest responsibility lies with the streamers who orchestrated these environments, but I am just highlighting how they work in tandem with the viewers. On these live streams, peer pressure isn't just a vague social force, it's real-time, amplified, and unavoidable. The on-set group, in Jean's case, his so-called friends, established the toxic tone, their own judgment likely warped by the same desensitized, overstimulated, and low-key sad brain rot we already described. This means dark humor is totally acceptable.
And these two, they reportedly got a kick out of bullying him, with this soon evolving into full-on physical and psychological abuse.
But every shout, every prank, every demeaning act sends a strong emotional signal. The live audience then acts as a massive amplifier for this signal, creating a vicious feedback loop of emotional contagion. Every comment in the chat heightens the intensity and silences rational breaks. Everyone is reacting in live, and the streamer feels immense pressure to perform and meet these escalating expectations. For more on that, just watch last week's video about Raja Jackson's IRL crash out. In this environment, stepping back or saying no becomes almost impossible. Morality, caution, and even basic health take a back seat to keeping the energy and attention going. And when money is on the line, people get even more willing to compromise anything else that could potentially interfere with it. Streamers feel that they can't stop because ending the stream equals losing viewers, money, and clout. Even right now, as I film this video, Kai Cenat is in the middle of a 1-month continuous subathon.
Man, so this is really the last Mafia-thon?
The last one.
Last one ever?
Ever. It's a trilogy.
Okay.
So this time, we gotta go bigger than ever.
How you gonna go bigger than Mafia-thon 2? I mean, you did 30 days, 24/7. Like, that's insane.
Just think about that. That's absolutely insane. This is also why a lot of hardcore streamers do subathons and marathon streams, and these almost always involve some level of sleep deprivation. But this doesn't mean feeling tired. Sleep deprivation takes a real toll on the body. Sleep is vital. Not only does it replenish your ATP, your body's energy currency, but during deep sleep, the brain clears toxins and mental clutter, prunes unnecessary connections, and restores cognitive function. It consolidates memories and strengthens learning, helping you retain new skills and experiences. Without it, mental fatigue builds quickly. Burnout, mood swings, and impaired decision-making are almost guaranteed when you push yourself for days without rest. Judgment falters, learning suffers, and reaction time slow. Sleep is also critical for physical healing and hormonal regulation. Without it, injuries take longer to recover, illnesses hit harder, and the body's systems, from immune function to metabolic balance, struggle to stay in check. A key factor in understanding JP's situation is the immense strain that prolonged wakefulness places on the cardiovascular system. Streamers pulling all-nighters are fighting their own biology. Our bodies are evolved to operate on a 24-hour cycle, or circadian rhythm, which ties essential processes like immune function and hormonal balance to periods of rest and activity. By staying awake through the night, they disrupt this critical cycle, initiating a state of systemic stress. And it is one thing to push off sleep during optimal hours, but to not sleep at all triggers a cascade of dangerous effects. Not only does it disrupt hormones, it spikes inflammation and cortisol, and impairs nervous system and blood vessel function. This forces the body into a perpetual fight or flight state, elevating heart rate and blood pressure directly, while also promoting vasoconstriction, the narrowing of the vessels, and salt retention. These mechanisms compound the strain, creating a severe burden on the heart. But the danger doesn't stop there. The simple act of sitting motionless for hours, a standard practice for many streamers, is itself a known and serious health threat. While we often focus on muscle and joint damage, the cardiovascular impact is even more significant. This immobility causes blood to stagnate, dramatically increasing the immediate risk of life-threatening blood clots and dangerous irregular heart rhythms known as arrhythmias. So individually, these factors, sleep deprivation and immobility, are harmful. Together, they are catastrophic. Both contribute to long-term problems like hypertension, obesity, diabetes, heart attack, and stroke. But in a marathon streaming scenario, it can create an acute, high-risk environment for a cardiovascular event. And even if his sleep were normal, his waking hours were anything but. He was essentially living in a state of chronic, severe stress. But it was far worse than just psychological anxiety. It was physically manifested through regular assaults.
You're essentially watching a man being beaten. You watch him at one point being grabbed by the neck.
Mans is out here getting choked on cam, bro. And at one point, they were apparently trying to beat their record for how long they choked him, suggesting it's a common occurrence. Strangulation and suffocation are not just musculoskeletal injuries. They are direct attacks on the nervous and cardiovascular systems. Cutting off oxygen triggers a panicked, extreme fight or flight response, causing a massive spike in adrenaline and cortisol and a dangerous surge in heart rate and blood pressure. This is an acute shock to a system already compromised by chronic stress and sleep deprivation.
Maybe you guys can hear some audio, but I don't know if I can even show the visual.
He's screaming stop, but all evidence suggests this isn't a rare breaking point, but a regular feature, a twisted hallmark of the content itself. I haven't seen all of the footage, but even a fraction of what is publicly available reveals a pattern of shocking behavior.
There's been beatings and slap, frequent physical strikes to his face, strangulations, bag overhead. They've definitely done the asphyxiation like that. Electric shocks, like by dog collar, boxing glove beatings, exploding cigarettes, paintball firing, the sleep deprivation that we talked about, the brutal wake-ups. They sometimes just dump cold water on him live on stream.
They go on to list a few more of the things they've seen in the streams, including the desecration of his personal items, forced demeaning acts like brushing his teeth with urine-contaminated brush, and public humiliation. A deliberate and cruel form of control was the nicotine manipulation.
Now, if you don't know, French culture is just synonymous with smoking. I think the highest rates of like cigarette smoking gotta be in France. Essentially, they would take away cigarettes, and then if you wouldn't complete acts, you wouldn't get access to them.
This tactic exploited a substance dependency to ensure his participation in his own torment, stripping away any remaining agency and deepening his psychological entrapment. And the mind games didn't stop there.
And then forced participation. Sometimes they would force him to beat somebody up to then therefore justify when they go and beat him up.
So, you may ask, why did he participate in this? The grim reality is that JP endured this abuse due to pervasive psychological manipulation and outright coercion. This wasn't really a collaboration, but more of an environment that fostered predation.
If you just watch that, it's very clear this isn't a man they respected. This is someone they treated like a human punching bag.
In the name of entertainment, it's not unusual for people to be taken advantage of. This situation is tragically familiar. It echoes other cases of online exploitation like Josh Block, World of T-Shirts, where vulnerable individuals are targeted, mocked, and monetized.
Yes, he's not.
He is clearly slow. He's a 46-year-old man hanging with people half his age. You can tell he's slow. You listen to him speak. I know you guys don't speak French. As someone who does, like, you can tell the man's not all up there.
And they relentlessly broke down his self-esteem, publicly mocking him for his deepest insecurities to make him more dependent on their conditional acceptance.
There is nothing that I have seen here that leads me to believe they genuinely cared about this guy. I think it's very clear Raphael Gravin very much cared about them and wanted to be their friend. And to me, it seems like they exploited that.
They weaponized his profound desire for genuine friendship and community against him. And if and when he tries to stand up for himself,
this is him saying, I've had enough.
They instantly pulled the leash tight. They reminded him that this was his livelihood, a lucrative source of content, and he was financially beholden to them.
Je veux que tu récupères les clés d'appartement de la voiture, qui paye le loyer qui manque, et qui peut partir.
So here, they're playing a clip where he said he didn't want to do one of the challenges. And so they're saying, we're going to lock him out. We're going to take his car. we're going to lock him out of his own place.
The pressure to keep up the bit wasn't just for the views. It was a means of survival, under threat of having it all taken away.
When you're in these kind of social environments, it's probably even a lot worse in this, or maybe for different reasons, but it's like you have the social adulation. For him, he's probably never seen this kind of money in his life before. He's never had attention because he's always been an irrelevant person, and now he has it, and these guys control it. Like, you can understand the kind of pressures he's under.
By this point, it should be painfully clear that these streamers had priorities far beyond JP's well-being on any given day. And this 10-day marathon stream just concentrated it, making the dynamics impossible to ignore.
He's reading now text that the victim sent to his mother. And he's reading the text that the victim sent to his mother, and the text says, "Hello, Mom, how are you? I'm kind of stuck in this death game."
That was just a few days prior to his passing. His mother, who was watching things play out online, responded with urgent concern, trying to reach her son before it was too late.
Tu as maigri, tu es fatigué.
His mom, "I can see you. They don't respect you. You've gotten thinner and you look exhausted. It's not good." So she's noticing his deterioration. They're reading her text and laughing.
And instead of heeding her warning, his friends just gaslighted him to continue, telling him, "You never looked better."
Viewers later described seeing him deteriorate on camera, at times disoriented or in visible distress.
On August 18th, JP was found dead in his sleep during the live stream. The cause? Cardiac arrest. While headlines highlighted the violence and sleep deprivation he endured, the official autopsy notably stated that foul play played no part in it.
An autopsy into the death of a kick streamer who was found dead at a house in France on Monday has found it was not due to trauma, according to a prosecutor. Doctors found no internal or external traumatic injuries, only a few bruises and healed lesions, and that there were no third parties involved.
The prosecutor has ruled out any third-party involvement, meaning his co-streamers aren't being held legally to blame, attributing the cause to likely medical issues. And this is where we enter a gray area. While he had no technical injuries that would indicate someone intentionally caused his death, we've already seen how he was in an unsustainable environment with a lot of people actively contributing to those dangerous conditions. This raises a critical question. Would the profound stress on his cardiovascular system, the buildup of downstream effects from chronic sleep deprivation and constantly raised cortisol levels be considered a traumatic injury in a legal sense, especially when his friends knew he had pre-existing health issues?
In another video, Owen and Safina are heard explicitly discussing the possibility of JP dying live on air, pressuring him to say to the camera right now that if he dies live tomorrow, it's because of his shitty health and not because of us.
JP had two underlying health conditions with his heart and his thyroid. We've talked about the heart, but the thyroid is also critical as it regulates metabolism and heart function. Crucially, the very conditions of his streaming life, chronic sleep deprivation, extreme psychological stress, and physical strain, are known to directly disrupt the thyroid hormone balance. For someone with a pre-existing condition, this relentless environment could act as a final catalyst, pushing a compromised system into total failure. For all of these reasons, a lot of people believe there is still a level of moral culpability here, even if legal culpability is absent.
I think we would all agree that if we have a friend who has issues with diabetes, we might not...
No, let's do a sugar challenge.
And I have to add, the autopsy also didn't rule out toxicological factors, a haunting detail given that they showed him being tricked into consuming unknown substances on stream.
They're making him take some kind of medication.
Ultimately, the conclusion many are drawing is this: even if no single traumatic injury caused his death, this ongoing situation certainly exacerbated his underlying vulnerabilities, leading to the fatal cardiac arrest.
These are people that know he has a health issue. They don't care. They're going to use him for entertainment. And when he dies, they want him to give them an out.
What makes this even sadder is that this abuse was both long-running and highly public. Again, he was a huge streamer on Kick, meaning this wasn't some hidden niche content.
And I understand that it can oftentimes be hard for a company to proactively get involved and stop something from happening before it happens, preventing a tragedy. But this one's a little different because a big source of their content was mistreating JP on stream.
Right, and that after he had already reportedly been subject to months and possibly years of humiliation and abuse hours and hours of which were captured on camera with nothing being done to stop it.
Authorities were actually aware. Last year, the police knew and had even begun an investigation already.
It appears that there were already eyes on this. You had a French investigative media outlet actually exposing the abuse back in December. And in fact, Owen and Safine were taken into police custody and questioned back in January.
But of course, everyone denied it, claiming it was all staged acting, and they were subsequently released without charge.
One of the lawyers for them has come forward and said that the victim had cardiovascular problems and that the violence in the videos was acted. All of those scenes are just staged. They follow a script, he said. Actually going back to the classic, it's all just acting. I do know that there are a couple of clips where Raphael Gravin was playing along with it to a certain degree, where he would kind of lean into like the humiliation / abuse for the sake of like the stream. There are a couple moments of that, but it's very rare.
As we've laid out, there was immense pressure for JP to accept the abuse for income. His own words to his mom before his passing were, "Want to get out, but can't. Feel like a prisoner." However, in a confusing and strange turn of events, his mother, who initially expressed grave concern in those texts, has now completely switched her position, publicly defending the streamers and denying any abuse ever occurred.
She said this: "The kick streamers accused of torturing her son are great people and never abused him. I'm proud of them and I want to thank them."
The core question remains, at what level does intervention come from? Do we need better laws and regulations for platforms to stop monetizable abuse before it's too late?
Governments haven't caught up with the internet. Internet's moving at like astronomical paces, AI, everything involved, and laws haven't updated, but they need to.
French ministers say websites are responsible for monitoring material and must ensure children are not exposed to violence.
The legal landscape is finally starting to shift, and governments are looking deeper into internet safety. Because of this tragedy, France is investigating and plans to hold Kik directly accountable for negligence.
A government minister said if the company is found violation of rules, it could face fines of up to 50 million.
Australia, Kik's founding country, is also cooperating. The public scrutiny is based on the premise that platforms not only knew about this content, but likely promoted and endorsed it.
The owner of Kik was donating to Jean Pormanove's free. He was number 5 on the donors list. And the governments have to get involved.
Yeah.
They have to get involved. There has to be penalties allotted to these platforms. Otherwise, no one's going to punish them.
And while regulation is a necessary step, it's likely not sufficient. Until the culture itself changes, the same risks will keep resurfacing. We need more than just site regulation. There's a constant tension where people demand action after a dramatic event, but then protest about censorship. Ultimately, this requires a value shift. Intervention must be both top-down and bottom-up. It means platforms being held legally responsible, but it also means each of us consciously choosing what content to support, and more importantly, upholding higher standards of behavior in our own social circles. Jean-Philippe's death is a profound tragedy, but it's also a stark warning. His story is not isolated. The medical bottom line is undeniable and terrifying. Prolonged stress, sleep deprivation, and psychological abuse can create a perfect storm that triggers a total physical collapse, especially in someone with underlying health issues. If we, as a culture, continue to normalize and consume this kind of extreme content, we become complicit in the system that demands it. Without a collective shift in values, platform accountability, and audience expectations, more tragedies like Jean's are not just possible, they are inevitable. Thanks for joining me in this discussion about the sometimes extreme nature of IRL streaming and the real effects that it can have on your health and welfare. But let me throw it out to you, the intern army. What are your thoughts about this epic IRL failure? Let me know in the comments. And be sure to join my intern army and click on your notification to catch my uploads every Monday morning. And if you dig what I do and want to support our mission even more, consider becoming a member of the channel. Don't forget to follow my gym, Cuba 2.0 Fitness, for free right here on YouTube, where we post content that helps you move better and prevent injury. Or its sister channel, Human at Home, where we show you how to be healthy in the space where you live. And remember, sometimes IRL streams can show a whole other level of reality that you can't take back, bro. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris Raynor, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.